Okay guys, we are going to be working on dividing complex numbers. This is a little more complicated, but it really isn't that bad. If you can multiply, you can divide. One thing we need to talk about is a conjugate. Okay, so if I have a 5 plus 2i, there is actually a number that's paired with it, and we call it a conjugate. That conjugate would be 5 minus 2i. So we take the imaginary, the complex, the b part, and we flip it and make it opposite. And these two kind of go together. So if I gave you 7 plus I, conjugate would be 7 minus I. Now be careful, it's not the opposite. If I wanted the opposite, it would be negative 7 minus I. I turn everything opposite. So this is just taking the imaginary part and flipping it. So what if I had a number without an imaginary part? What's the conjugate? It's just 2, because we don't turn the real part. What if we have something that is just an imaginary part, like negative 2i? What's the conjugate there? Well, we flip the imaginary part, and that would be 2i. So it's very important. The conjugate is not the opposite. It's just flipping that I part. So let's actually start dividing an example. Alright, we're going to start with 8 minus 4i. And we're going to divide it by 1 plus I. Okay, another way to write this is 8 minus 4i all over 1 plus I. Because that division bar, that means that we divide. So when we were doing fractions before, if you wanted to get 2/3 to be larger, you could multiply this by 4, but you had to do it on the bottom as well, and it would be the same fraction, it would just look bigger. You would have 8 over 24. So back here, if I reduce this, I could divide by 4 and get back smaller. Now here, we're going to use the same kind of trick. I'm going to take the conjugate of what we're dividing by. So the conjugate here would be 1 minus e, or I. And I'm going to make a fancy fraction here. Now over here, that's like 4 over 4. 4 over 4 is just 1. So I'm just multiplying by 1. Even though it looks bigger, I'm not changing it. Same thing here. Now, the important part is I have to multiply across on top, then I have to multiply on bottom. So for the top portion, I'm going to do a box. It's 2 things times 2 things. So if I have 8 minus 4i, 1 minus I, that is a FOIL problem. So I'm going to do my box.
5 minutes left here. A little over 5 minutes.
8 times 1 is 8. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4i. That would be negative 8i. And negative 4 times positive, or negative 1 is positive 4i squared. We do the normal thing. That would be 8 minus 12i, and we have this 4i squared. Remember, this is negative 1. So that turns us into 8 minus 12i minus 4. So my final answer is going to be 4 minus 12i. But that's on the top. Okay, so we have to keep going here. We have not done this bottom part here. So let me write bottom here. That would be 1 plus I, 1 minus I. 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times I is I, 1 times negative I is negative I times negative I is negative I squared. Now the thing you'll find on the bottom is the bottom, these two cancel. They're opposites. So all I have is 1 minus I squared. And remember, I squared is negative 1. So this is 1 minus a negative 1, which really is just 1 plus 1. So that would be 2. So we have to take the top over here and put it over the bottom over here, that would be 4 minus 12i all over 2. Now there's one last thing we have to do. We have to divide with the butterfly if we can. I just noticed that 4 divided by 2 works out. 12 divided by 2 works out. So the left wing, 4 divided by 2 would be 2. This minus stays there. 12i divided by 2 would be 6i. That's my final answer.